Hi, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Eminent Women. My name is Tsegoha Jomoagi, and we are together, of course, for the next 45 minutes or so, where we get to know another eminent woman doing phenomenal things in her space. And today we are joined by Palesa Kumalo. She is a built environment specialist, professional, and we'll get to know what exactly does she do, but how often is she judging your homes? Or the spaces that you go into. And she joins us today. Palesa, hi. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, Tseho. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about being a built environment professional specialist. What is it that you do on a day to day?
On a day to day, in a nutshell, I'm making my clients' dreams come true. As an architectural technologist, that means putting together the design to their desired outcome, looking at specifications, picking out finishes, making sure that the space is as beautiful as they want it to be, but also efficient in serving the purpose that they want that space to serve. As a project manager, I am leading the team, pulling together the different disciplines that go into creating those spaces, making sure that we are paying attention to our program, so timelines, we are meeting deadlines. In terms of cost, we're making sure that we are keeping to the client's budgets. If there are any changes, I'm communicating with the team and with the client and really just coordinating the whole process and making sure that it comes to life.
Why architecture?
Ooh. I think I discovered architecture when I was about 12 years old, doing a school project where we had to design a house, our dream house. And I fell in love with it there. I think I loved the fact that I could be creative and really take a blank space and turn it into anything that I can imagine. But the fact that it can also get built from a drawing to an actual structure and it gets used. And I think just the pleasure of being able to drive past my past projects and be able to say, I did that. I think I enjoy that. I enjoy the creative side of it, but I'm a very technical person. I love challenges that come with the mathematical side of it, working out spaces, putting together things that function together. Yeah, I think it comes from that. But my initial love came from when I was about 12 years old working on that school project.
Now, I must say, Palesa and I went to school together. Why did you not hint this at me, girl?
I think at the time, I was still dreaming about becoming a pediatrician. I think the decision to go into architecture came maybe a year or two after that project, but it's something that stuck with me. And that's how I knew that I'm making the right decision. But at the time that we were still in school going through the motions of that, I was still focused on becoming a pediatrician. So that was the original dream, but this one was worth changing to.
I can imagine that. I understand, if I'm not mistaken, it still isn't it a very male dominated space that you're in.
It is.
So
It
how do you
is.
maneuver your way around?
I think it takes a lot. It takes being teachable. Yes, it's a predominantly male industry across the built environment, not just in architecture, but even in all the engineering disciplines. It's men. You're surrounded by men all the time. But knowing that, you're there for a purpose, understanding who you are and what you bring to the table, and standing firm in your skill and your ability to deliver the product to the client. You'll be tested, you'll be challenged quite a lot. But when you know who you are and you know what you're there for and you're determined to overlook certain things and overcome the challenges, you keep going and you eventually get it right. And eventually people come around. Unfortunately, I think even in 2026, it's still majority men in the industry. And you still walk into a room and you're expected to just be a woman with no value to add. So it takes a lot of proving yourself and fighting for your voice to be heard. But I think being a project manager has afforded me the opportunity to be in the leading position of every team that I form part of. So regardless of what opinions they may have, they're forced to listen to me. And I think the more they listen, the more they realize that actually she knows what she's doing, she knows what she's talking about, and eventually the team comes around.
Let's take a few steps back. So at 12 years old, you fall in love with being able to create a space that you can call your own, and then you see it come to life. From that moment, you then go through primary school, high school, tertiary. What did you then study? What subjects were needed for you to get to where you are now?
Okay, so I think starting from the transition from primary school to high school, I intentionally went to a technical high school. I understood that getting into this sort of field required certain technical skills from a foundational level. I'm very fortunate that my mother is a teacher. Well, she's a principal at the moment. At the time, she was just a teacher at post level 1. And she's always exposed me to information. She's always, if there's a career day, she would take me there. She didn't care that it was for kids of age 16, 17, 18. At 12, she was taking me to those things. And so discovering all of the things that I discovered at the time, I knew that I had to have a certain foundation to be successful as an architect. So I intentionally went to a technical high school, intentionally chose subjects like your technical drawing, which laid my ability to be able to communicate graphically as an architect or an architectural technologist. Then from there, it required a bit of art as well, going into entrance exams at varsity level. But I think that's something that we've always done in school, from primary school level anyway. I then specifically applied for architecture at various universities, studied at UJ, went up to a Bachelor of Technology at UJ, and then went out to work. Along the way, I've developed an interest in project management and eventually pivoted into project management. I've also studied property development and management, and all of that has come together to help me become the project manager that I am.
So when you then speak about being an architecture, I just want to let's just stay on that before we come to the project management bit of the work that you do. When you design the house, what do you need from your client?
I need to know your vision and your dream first. Tell me what you're dreaming about. When you close your eyes and you picture your house, what are you seeing, right? If there's land, hopefully there is land. It helps. Then we go there and we walk through the site. What are you seeing on site? What do you picture this part of the site becoming? What do you picture that part of the site becoming? That's from a residential design perspective. I must say I'm mostly involved in commercial and retail projects, but it's a similar process that we follow even with those clients as well. It's what do you envision your space to be? What do you want it to become? Currently, I'm doing a lot of office fit outs. And so you get given a building that's existing, and the client tells you, I need office space for this many people, but I need the space to have this and to have that. And I think design has changed over the years. In the past, we'd only be designing just for pure office space. It has a bathroom and a kitchen, and that's it. But nowadays, we're incorporating prayer rooms. We're incorporating pause areas. We're incorporating breastfeeding or nursing rooms. Sorry, we're incorporating sick bays. We're incorporating a lot of things that traditionally would not have been put into an office. So it's understanding what your vision is for that space. Let's walk through it and tell me what you see each part of that space becoming. And let's create that together.
Let's then speak about AI and the dangers it may bring to your environment and the work that you do. Have you been able to see the possibility of what AI could do that you are currently working on as well?
I think what we're seeing a lot in terms of AI in the industry, especially where design is concerned, it's very easy. Remember, AI, it's created by people. And whatever, like if you look at things like machine learning is the machine learning. So whatever, the more you input things to it, is the more that you're teaching the system. And the more that the system learns, the more that it can output. So what we're seeing is a lot of people can easily take a picture of a space and say, whatever AI you're using, create this for me in this space. And the AI spits that out. But the danger of that is AI doesn't take into consideration regulation, for instance. With everything that we do in this industry, it's regulated. If you're going to create an office space for 10 people, for example, there's a certain amount of square meters you need to provide for that person, for each person. There's a certain number of parking bays you need to give, certain number of bathrooms. The ratios need to make sense and they need to be compliant. AI, I don't think, takes that into consideration. Not only that, but structurally, your structure must be able to stand. Remember that you're putting human lives in there. And ultimately, anything and everything that happens within that space needs to be a healthy environment. AI won't take that into consideration. And one thing you don't want, if you look at the things that have been in the news of buildings collapsing, there's a lot of processes that most likely were missed. a lot of compliance that wasn't met, and that led to those structures collapsing. And that's the risk that I see with AI, is that if it's not taking into consideration specifically local regulation, because also remember that a lot of the AI platforms that exist at a global scale, are probably created in the US or any other place. And what does it say in terms of what South Africa says in terms of our legislation that comes to, putting up buildings? Is it taking into consideration what SACAP has regulated, what SABS, or build local building regulations? There's a lot that AI doesn't take into consideration. So while it might paint a pretty picture, but you're not getting, structurally what you should be getting. You're not necessarily, it's not a space that I would trust.
You spoke about the buildings that have collapsed, and I wanted us to touch on that because I suppose you watch the news and you're not there physically, yes, but there must be something that you see where you might also have an opinion to say this could have been done differently. Have you had any situations where you've had to perhaps interact with some people where these buildings have collapsed, or where there was an almost building collapse? And what are some of the things that people are missing, that they are really just overlooking, that need to be part of a building?
Personally, I haven't encountered or interacted with anybody who's been involved in a building collapse. I think generally when that happens and the professionals who are involved, I find that tend to sort of keep to themselves to try and deal with that situation. It becomes very tricky to now be talking about the situation that has happened. But what I do is follow the news, read the publications. You'll find the different councils. So I think I won't mention which building it was, but there was a report that I'd read from the Engineering Council of South Africa. There was another report that I'd read from the South African Council for the Architectural Profession, which is who I'm registered with. So all of these councils will do their own investigations and they'll release reports in industry. So I tend to read up on those. But I think a question that comes up is, who are the professionals that are involved? What structures were put into place? Was there a risk register? What were the mitigating factors on that risk register? What do they consider in terms of dealing with the problems? Could this have been foreseen? Is it something that was an oversight? What exactly happened and how did they get to that point? But, I think speaking to professionals who have been involved in buildings that end up collapsing, it's difficult, at least until people have proven their innocence. Then you can reach out and find out. But yeah, I think a lot of the time the question is always around who was involved, what processes did they follow, structurally, who signed off, because every design that gets put out needs to be signed off. You don't just go from plan to building. Even as an architect, when you design a building, it needs to be approved by the municipality. And the municipality has the right to get you to tear your building down or stop a project if you haven't gotten your plans approved. I mean, generally, I haven't seen one being torn down because it hasn't been approved, but they will stop you and they will say, get your house in order before you can continue. There's health and safety, something that I don't want to say it's overlooked. It's a very big part of what we do, especially once the project hits ground on site. But a lot of people do, I have seen in industry that people disregard health and safety. When a health and safety manager is, walking around with their whip on site saying, this is not in order, people will fix the problem for now and then carry on working unsafely. And it's a constant fight. But I've seen sites being stopped because health and safety was not in order. And I'm grateful for that, because if they hadn't done that, there could have been injuries. There could have been all sorts of situations that we don't want. And ultimately, as professionals, we're liable. I'd have to go and answer. It's my site. What have I done to prevent that? Why did this happen under my watch? So, yeah.
That then leads us to the project management element of your work. What would you do? What would be the one thing that you do as a project manager to ensure that not just you and your team are safe, but the people that will be within this building?
I think the first point to start at is risk management. Risk is something that you don't wait until the risk shows up and it's no longer a risk, it's a live problem. It's good to, and it's important to have foresight as a project manager. Foresight with everything, and risk can happen, on the financial aspect of the project, but also on the physical aspect on site. So having foresight, being able to assess the situation and see that we might encounter a problem here. And I think that then leads you as a project manager to be curious about all the different parts that come into the building. Be curious about what the engineers are doing. Be curious about what the contractors would be doing when they get on site. How do they interpret the drawings that are put in front of them? Be curious about the other architects that are on the project. Be curious even about the health and safety managers. Are you considering what's happening on site? Are you looking at the design? Because health and safety is not something that I think you should look at only when you get to site. I think it's important to look at it and consider it while it's still in the design phase. So that if there is anything that the health and safety managers can pick up, that we pick it up before we get to site and we address the problem before we get to site, or at least mitigate the risk before we get to site. But it's all about risk management, understanding what the hazards are on site, what the hazards are once before the project gets to site, once the project is on site, understand how the different disciplines are being coordinated as well in terms of the design and planning ahead.
We've spoken, of course, as you being a project manager, that it's a male-dominated industry that you're in. And of course, men may want to argue with the kind of work that you want to bring forward, or what you want to be done at the particular project. Have you ever had an instance personally where you feel that you were being sabotaged by your team?
It happens.
Oh
It
my.
happens. It happens quite a lot. And again, it comes to the thing of you are a woman. And especially, I think, I don't want to say it's just in the South African context, because I do work in neighboring South Africa, neighboring countries around South Africa. So currently I'm working on a project in a neighboring country. I won't say where, just to protect my client's image. But I've found that, people will try to take advantage of the fact that you're a woman. And I mean, if you look at me, I'm small. So a lot of the time I'm stepping into a room and not only is it men, but they're also a lot of the time bigger than I am. And then I think your intellect is where you need to draw your power. I think also your femininity, excuse me, your femininity is also, I like to refer to it as a superpower. Oftentimes you're made to feel like you have nothing to contribute because you're so feminine. Why are you wearing makeup to the office or to site? Why are you like this? Why are you like that? You need to find a way to be able to, put a lid on that and say, this is what we're here for. This is the work that we're doing, and this is the idea that I have, or this is the suggestion that I have, and this is why it can work. We have to prove ourselves, unfortunately, twice as much as our male counterpart, even worse when you are a Black woman. So then it's 3 times as much, because now you've not only got race working against you, but you've got your gender working against you as well. Add to that the fact that you are a mom, and it's known that you are a mom. So then that's something else that you can be discounted for, because go worry about your kids. And I've had that happening so many times. And I think the main thing for me is being able to speak up for myself, being able to build a good relationship with my clients as well. I think one thing that I've learned to do really well is when I meet my client, I make sure that they understand who I am and what role I'm fulfilling on site. I make sure they understand that I'm there to offer them a service and to make their lives easier and to achieve the goals that they have. And that even if there's other fluff that comes up because of being undermined for my race or my gender, but let's focus. This is the vision. This is where we are. This is what we're doing. I think once you have that relationship solidified, especially with the client, eventually people fall into line. But it's a process of constantly proving yourself.
A few steps back, this was not, I mean, you obviously come into the industry and you must have been somewhat shocked at some of the ways that you were treated. I mean, the Palisa that we speak into now is one that has learned over the years how to represent yourself and to ensure that people take you seriously. But when you started, how do you think you were able to solidify your role in the team that you were part of?
I think I had to be teachable. There's certain things that I had to accept being overlooked because you're female and you're Black. I think a lot of the times when I first started out, I was finding myself in environments where also language was a thing. I was stepping into meetings and offices where Afrikaans would be the language of preference. And it still happens now. I've learned now that I don't have to take that. Nowadays, if we're in a meeting and the language switches, I walk away because it means that you don't need me. But when you're ready to have me in that discussion, you let me know and we can meet, find common ground where we can meet. And I know that as a project manager, I need to be part of those discussions. So even if they continue without me, the discussion will have to be had again. But it took me learning how to assert myself in that position. Now, when I first started out, I would sit there quietly and then wait for the next person who was willing to translate, like, what did they say? Or is that what they said? Quickly take notes and try to keep up. Fortunately for me, I do understand a bit of Afrikaans, so I would not always be completely lost. But when I look at people that I started out with in the industry, I'd find that people are actually completely lost because of that. So you end up taking things because you're scared, because you're new, because you're outnumbered. I've never walked into a room or led a team that was balanced in terms of male, female, black, white. Majority of the time, if I'm leading a team, it's all male and I'm the only woman in the room. Sure. So you have to fight for your voice to be heard. Nowadays, yes, there are more women in the team. Currently, the team that I'm leading, there's a good number of women, but there are still more men on the team. I think I had to be teachable in the beginning. Understand that as much as certain things may be uncomfortable and unpleasant, but I'm here to learn about the work. So you ignore that. And it comes with emotional intelligence as well, because it will offend you. It will hurt your feelings. I know people who left the industry because they just couldn't handle that part of it. Sure. So it comes with learning, emotionally how to regulate yourself and understand that we pick our battles. That's not a battle that I have to fight. I'm here to learn a skill. I'm here to develop myself as a professional. And once I've learned that, next time when we step into that room, I can put my hand up and say, actually, I'd like to contribute to this discussion, but because we've switched languages, it's making it difficult. Can we keep to a certain language so that I can also participate? Because I think I have a solution to the problem. And the more you assert yourself in that, the more you become more confident in doing that and in understanding that you're valid. Your place in that room is valid. Your place on that team is valid. And language aside, or genders aside, race aside, ultimately, we need to find common ground. We're all working towards the same goal. So you're either with me or I keep moving, I keep learning, I keep getting better. So, it's not that I, being who I am, have to keep up with you. Maybe you're the one who has to keep up with me. Maybe you're the one who has to learn from me. So, let's work together and work towards achieving the goal.
Absolutely. Balisa, do you judge people's homes and buildings?
Sadly, yes. Sadly, yes. It's the curse of being in the profession that I'm in. I walk into a space and, fortunately you walk into a space sometimes and it's really nice. And I can appreciate and say, they made some good design choices here. The contractor was very neat and it's been built well. But a lot of the time I find myself walking in like, why is it designed this way? Why is it laid out this way? Why didn't they clean off the paint there? Why didn't they fix that dent in the wall? Doesn't that bother them? But you learn to bite your tongue. You learn to bite your tongue and understand that sometimes this is somebody's sanctuary and they love it as it is. And appreciate what you're there for. You're not there to judge. Unless if they've called me to say, come and have a look at my space. What can I do better? Then it's free reign for me. But otherwise, everywhere, the mall, I walk into a store and I'm like, I could have brought a team that could have done better. Yeah, but unfortunately, it happens. It happens.
I don't know if you're able to, but can you share some of the buildings? I know some of them, but that you have actually been part of and that you've designed.
Oh, it's difficult because a lot of the time we sign NDAs and a lot of the clients, like if you look around Sandton, there are quite a lot of buildings in Sandton that I've worked on. I've seen them. They appear on TV shows. They appear in adverts. I'm reluctant to say the names of the buildings because of the NDAs that we sign. But yeah, I shape a lot of skylines. I think there's a lot in Sandton that I've worked on. I think one that I can mention now that I think of it, and it's purely because they've also once interviewed me on their Twitter profile when they were talking about the building, is the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital.
Oh, wow.
I had a bit of it was a Twitter interview at the time that we worked on it. So because that one is out there, I'll mention that one. Yeah.
That's amazing. How does it feel for you to walk past or drive past these buildings, knowing that you had a hand in what they look like?
To be honest, I geek out every time. It never gets old. It's such a beautiful feeling. And just to see people enjoying the spaces that you've worked on. Like with the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, I was particularly involved in the HVAC design and installation on that one. But I mean, just knowing that, like if you know what HVAC is, it's got to do with conditioning the space and making sure that there's clean air inside, and knowing that, and that contributes to healing. So it being a hospital, knowing that I'm contributing to the healing. So it takes me back to my love for pediatrics and the fact that I wanted to get into pediatrics. So although I didn't become a pediatrician, but I've somehow contributed to the healing of children. So every time I see the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, I'm like, there are kids getting healed in there. And I've played a part. You know, the office buildings that I've built. I mean, every time I drive in Sandton, I'm like a kid in a candy store, because literally every second, third building, I'm driving past something that I've worked on, and I'm just always like, "Ah, I worked on that." And if I've got somebody in the car, I'm like, look, I worked on that. So it's a nice feeling. It never gets old. Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. Let's talk about your business. Share with us a little bit about what you have now done, of course, coming from you being in this particular industry.
Well, there's two businesses now. But I'll talk about, since we're talking about the built environment, I'll talk about that one. So that one is mostly at the moment subcontracting on very small projects. It is still, I'd say, at a startup level, still very small, finding our feet. Business is challenging, and breaking into the industry that I'm in as a business owner is quite difficult. And I think one of the things that have been a challenge for me, and something that I'm learning, is in my employment, I've always worked on very large buildings. I think the smallest that I've worked on for an employer is about 3,000 square meters, or maybe slightly less. But generally, for the majority of my career, it's your 50,000 square meters, 11 floors, 10 floors. So very large buildings. Now, when you come into this industry, unless if you have money for days, you're not going to come in and immediately start working on that size of buildings. You're coming in very small. So it's been quite a learning curve. The learning is ongoing, but we get involved in projects here and there. Recently, I've quoted for a bathroom renovation. It's such a small thing, but I value that because that's where I'm learning. I understand that you learn on a smaller platform, and that's what equips you and lays the foundation for you to get into a bigger space. And yeah, I think for the most part, it's still a lot of lessons. It's not at a point where I can say, yes, it's a big business and I'm ready to only focus on that. But it's been lessons, and I think I'm appreciating the learning process.
What's the name of the business?
Well, it's the Ndalo Entler Group. Yeah, it's based in Heidelberg, but yeah, we can reach projects around Gauteng at the moment.
There is also STEM, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Let's speak about STEM as well.
Okay, so STEM Girl Magic is actually a project. It's when I started it, it was meant to be like an initiative of the Ndalo Entler Group.
Okay.
And it comes from my love for mentorship, and my understanding that representation matters. But beyond representation, inclusion is what we really need. Just reflecting on the fact that our industry is predominantly male, and how much I had to fight to become the person that I am in the industry. There have been a lot of times when I've wanted a mentor, but struggled to find a mentor that looks like me and that experiences the industry in the way that I do. And so STEM Girl Magic came from that. I think a lot of the STEM careers are predominantly male. I'm obviously in the built environment, which is just one. The world of STEM is big. There's a lot. I mean, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. When you break those down, even within those areas, there are a lot of careers. But one thing I've picked up over the years is one common denominator. It's that it's predominantly male. And we need to be able to pass on the lessons that we've learned to our younger females who are coming into these industries, to let them know that there are some growing pains, but it's part of the process. That if I look this way, if I come from where I come from, and I've reached where I've reached, you can do it too. And that there's space for all of us. And pushing the agenda of empowering and equipping the future female leaders of the industry doesn't necessarily mean that we want to push men out. It's more just to say that there's space for all of us at the table, but we just need to make the table bigger and let everyone in.
Absolutely. What lessons do you think you've learned from being in the built environment industry and then opening your own business?
That fear is a lie.
Okay.
Fear is a lie, and if you believe it, you'll never achieve anything. I think that's the first lesson that comes to mind. A lot of the time, like I mentioned earlier, I know of a few females who have left the industry because of the fear that is created when you look at yourself as a woman and you realize that you're outnumbered. So fear is a lie. You need to, at some point, understand that you have something to offer. And no matter how scared you may be, do it scared. Go ahead and do it, because no one can do it for you except yourself. At least try. If you fail, know that at least you've tried. You've learned something along the way. So even that's another lesson. Failure is not, it's not a destination. It's just a part of the journey. And whatever you learn from the failures that you've encountered, it's really just helping you become more and more of what you're meant to be. But it's not a destination. You don't fail and stop there and say, I've failed and that's it. You take the lessons, and even though you may not have achieved what you set out to achieve, but you've learned something. And that in itself is an achievement.
Let's speak a little bit more about Indalo Endler Group and the work that you do there. Of course, like you say, you've now quoted for a bathroom, but what are you hoping to achieve with that company?
Ultimately, I'd like to grow it to a point where we can take on large-scale commercial and retail buildings without having to rely on subcontracts, but become a main contractor. I'd also like to introduce the element of standalone architectural design as well. So offer turnkey solutions to clients. At the moment, like I said, it's still quite a learning curve. So we've started off with the contracting side as I continue to improve my skills as an architectural technologist. But eventually, I'd like that to be all under one roof and be able to offer turnkey solutions to clients. If you come for the design, we can offer you the fit out as well. And I think there's a benefit to being able to offer that to clients, because if you're the one who's designed it and you've built it, you take full accountability. Whereas what I've seen in industry is a lot of the time the contractor will say, oh, the design was like that and that's why it's failed, or the designer will put it out there and then the contractor makes a mistake and says, I designed it well, but the contractor has done that. So I think being able to put that together in one offering would be beneficial to clients. It would take a little bit of the headache out, give them a single point of contact so that they know that when they've spoken to me about something, we'll take it from start to finish throughout all stages of the project.
Do you have a team at the moment at Indalo Endler?
A very small team. I call them up as and when I need them. But I think permanently is myself. I have my brother who helps me out as well. But yeah, I think permanently it's us. Now and then when we need, depending on the project that we have and the skills that we need, we call people up. But yeah.
What keeps you going, would you say?
I think it's the dream that I have for myself more than anything. If you don't have a dream, I think it's very easy to get bored and to fall off the wagon. But knowing that what you're doing it's in line with your dream. You have a vision for yourself. You know that there's certain things that you're setting out to achieve, not to please anyone else, but because, it's what's in your heart. I think it's important to have a calling as well, to be called to the work that you do. I think project management in itself can easily be misunderstood as managing the project, managing design. But what you're doing is actually managing people. It takes a calling to be able to manage people, to deal with different personalities, and in this industry, to deal with egos as well. And everybody wanting to be right and everybody wanting to be the priority, to be able to coordinate that and to manage time at the same time and manage cost at the same time, all the while keeping your client happy and letting them know that even when things are on fire, you keep that away from them and let them know that things are okay. Knowing when to let them know that, okay, it's burning now. I think having the calling for what you're doing, having the passion for it, and having a vision.
Have you worked on any government departments or government buildings, I mean?
I've worked on 2 SOEs.
Okay.
There was a project very early in my career, projects that I did for Rand Water and for ESCOM as well. So I'd say that was my brush with the government. Recently, there was something that came up, but it fell through. I think internally they had some challenges. But yeah, the SOEs.
Okay. How do you relax?
I go to the spa, I read a book, have some chamomile tea, play with my daughter. I think those are the main things. Play with my daughter, we have picnics, go for long walks. Yeah, I try.
No, it's good. It's good that you're trying to balance things out, right? And let me then ask that question, because it sounds like you're quite busy, even at work. But like you said as well, that you are a mom, and you sometimes get overlooked because you are a mom, or people try to overlook you because you are a mom. How have you been able to balance out your life and do what you can do, but also being a present mom?
I think, sure, it takes a lot of effort. It takes being intentional. As an employee, it takes having the correct environment. As a business owner, it takes curating the correct environment for yourself. It's very easy to get sucked into the rush of things. But I think being intentional is very important. Being able to plan your time management is a big thing, not just on projects. I think just for life in general, knowing that sometimes you have to compartmentalize things and make decisions about what you're putting where in your life, prioritizing and knowing that, like for instance, with my daughter, she didn't put herself here. So as passionate as I am about the work that I do, as much as I want to stay forever just focused on my work and making, amazing things in my work, but understanding that ultimately my daughter is someone that I have to put first. And when she calls and says, Mom, she shouldn't have to call twice. From the first time that she calls, I need to be able to say, okay, she takes priority for this moment, but also having the mental capacity to be able to immediately get back to my work and refocus again. I think being adaptable is also a very big thing, because it also takes having that flexibility and adaptability to know that you're constantly switching in between roles and needing to emotionally regulate yourself also to the different roles and mentally adjust yourself from thinking about one thing, immediately switching to thinking about something else. So, yeah.
What is something that you think people don't completely understand about the built environment?
Oh, that's a tough one. Something that people don't completely understand. I'd say not necessarily. I think a specific one that I have is architecture, or being an architect and working in that space. I've had a lot of times where people have come to me and said, can you design a certain thing for me? And then you quote a fee, or you have a discussion about what it might take. Sometimes people just inquire just for the purpose of getting a ballpark figure to understand what they should budget for a future project. And a lot of the time, people will think, but you're just drawing a few lines. Why is it costing so much? So I think people misunderstand the amount of work and the amount of responsibility that goes into creating a physical structure, because there's a quote that I like, that architecture is the stage on which life takes place. And if you think about a stage, it's a structure. It needs to carry weight. It needs to be structurally sound. It needs to, serve its function. So people tend to misunderstand the responsibility that lays on the shoulders of architects, engineers, project managers, even health and safety managers, and undermine the amount of work that goes into resolving a design. Because I can come as an architect and say, this is what the space should look like. And the engineer can say, actually, you need to add this and that to make it work. a structural engineer. And then an electrical engineer can say, but you're getting in the way of this. And everyone wants to have their part and needs to have their part to make the space work. But putting all of that together is a lot. There's a lot that goes into it.
So typically, how much would you charge?
Also a difficult question. How much we charge depends on a number of things. So I can never give a figure and say this is how much we charge. But I can tell you that what is considered is the sort of design that you're going for, the size of the space that you're looking at, the sort of finishes that you want. Are we including furniture or not? How much time do we need to spend working it out? How detailed does it need to be? I think those are the main things that go into considering or putting together a fee structure in terms of what we would charge you. It can be based on a percentage of your budget. It can also be based on an hourly rate. It can also be based on a square meter rate. So all of those are things that we would discuss with the client and say, this is what you need. This is the best way. And it differs per project. In some projects, it makes sense to go for a percentage of the budget, especially where the budget is fixed, then we're designing around that. But in some instances, based on just how detailed it is and how luxurious they want it to be, it makes sense to go for a square meter rate. So it's a lengthy, detailed conversation that needs to happen. Never something that comes off the top of the head. I think if you speak to an architect or an engineer or any built environment professional and they immediately give you a figure off the top of their head, I'd be worried, because have they considered fully what the project entails?
How long would it take you typically, do you think, to do a design according to what the client wants? Or would it also depend on what they want?
It also depends, but I think how long it takes also depends on the client, because you'll get clients who are easy to deal with. You present a design the first time. In fact, we'll present a concept at the first instance, and they're happy with the concept, and you develop from there. And then that design goes relatively quickly. Also, if there are not a lot of challenges on site, it goes very quickly. But then some cases you deal with a client who changes their mind all the time, and changes their requirements all the time. So then you're constantly redesigning. And that's also something else that would contribute to the fees, because if I'm repeating work, eventually at some point your money runs out and I need to, revisit how much I'm charging you. And if you're willing to pay for it, by all means, we can do it, but it lengthens the process as well. It really depends. It depends on the project. It depends on the client as well.
What are some of the challenges that you have faced on site?
Uncoordinated designs. So by uncoordinated, I mean, if you look at an office building, you've got lights and electricals, you've got air conditioning, you've got ceilings, you've got fire detection, you've got a lot of things that need to come in there. And then you've got the aesthetic features, your wall finishes, your floor finishes, your ceiling finishes, you've got bulkheads and you've got lay-in ceilings. So there's coordination that's required between all of the disciplines to make sure that you are not putting an air conditioner where a light fitting needs to go, and you're not putting a light fitting where a fire detector needs to go or a sprinkler needs to go. So getting onto site and there are those clashes is a huge problem. We try to mitigate, but it still happens sometimes. And unfortunately, that leads to delays. Sometimes it leads to additional costs because now we have to go back to the drawing board and work things out. So if it helps to do coordination, in fact, coordination is a requirement before getting onto site. But sometimes you deal with designers who don't really take coordination that seriously, or who might not be as experienced and make mistakes. And those mistakes become costly. So the biggest thing I'd say is uncoordinated drawings and uncoordinated spaces that lead to clashes, which lead to delays and additional costs.
Sure. What makes you happy?
Within my industry or outside? Just
Outside.
in general.
You as Palisa without being in the industry.
What makes me happy? My family. My family makes me very happy. I think I'm blessed with a very loving family and a very loving daughter. Food makes me happy as well. Food makes me very happy. But just, I think being able to just breathe and, take time to spend time with God and spend time with family and eat together and laugh together. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say that.
What makes you sad?
Ooh, seeing people suffer. I think seeing people suffer, and suffering can come in different ways. I could drive past someone who maybe is begging on the side of the road, and I can look at them and say, hey, that could have been me, and it makes me sad. I could hear about, the death of someone, whether I know them or not. The fact that I've heard about it, for me, it's really sad. Yeah, pain and suffering, I'd say, makes me sad, even if it's not related to me or close to me, but just seeing suffering. Yeah.
If you could change one thing about your industry, what would it be?
Ooh, that's another difficult one. One thing I'd change about my industry. I think something I'm passionate about right now that I'm working to influence change in is how the industry receives women. I think it's very sad that in 2026, as women, we still have to fight for our place. We still, a lot of the time, have to fight for respect that would be easily given to our male counterparts. But then you find that because you're a woman, I've been in situations where you find that you walk into a situation, something goes wrong, and the first person, because blame has to be assigned to someone, the first person that gets looked at that it might be their fault is the woman in the room.
Sure.
And that blame openly will get shifted to you. And it's up to you to decide, do you take it? Or do you stand up and say, no, actually, this is where the problem is. This is where the blame should go. Sometimes it's not even about redirecting the blame. It's about addressing the issue. So I definitely, something that I'm passionate about is changing how the industry receives women. I think we've made a lot of progress as industry. There are a lot of women coming in, but we've still got a long way to go in terms of how women are treated in the industry, how we are accommodated in the industry, and just generally how much freedom we're given to really, shine in the work that we do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. This was lovely. Palesa Kumalo there speaking to us about her work in the built environment industry, the profession that she has chosen. Please do check her out on her social media pages. It's Palesa Kumalo, but where else?
Yeah, I think I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I think I'm on Twitter as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think social media is a good place to start.
Yes.
And then, DM me if you need help with anything. We can take it from there.
Absolutely. Do that, and let's support the small businesses, the small Black-owned businesses. From myself and the team, Tsegoha Moagi and the whole team behind Conversations with Eminent Women, that's how we end it today. Remember to like and subscribe. We are also on all social media platforms, Conversations with Eminent Women. Have yourselves a lovely day. Remember, wherever you go, whoever you encounter, just be kind and protect your peace. Bye-bye.